Good evening and welcome to the Prophetic Outlook. Tonight we are going to, well, actually, let's address the elephant in the room first off. Yes, I have no beard right now. Um, I've shaved it off, and I know I look weird without a beard, but you know what? It is what it is. So, without further ado, what we're going to actually talk about tonight is the political system that we're seeing right now being built up, the political system that seems to be coming into the fore. And I was reading the news a few days ago, and I was kind of asking myself, is there going to be a change of the guard? We're living in the election year, where over half of the world's population are going to the polls this year, and if that were to be used in any sort of demonic strategy or strategy of end times, one could look at it and go, well, maybe that's the year in which everything's going to be switched around and the beast system's going to be developed. But how would that fit in with the rhetoric that we have been proclaiming for a while now, that the beast system is already being developed? Well, my thoughts on this is that I think that there will be a clinging from the old guard that has been ushering in this system for the last few years, specifically since 2020, the old guard that has been bringing in a beast style system. And whenever you look at what is happening here, so 2024 marks a kind of, I guess, unprecedented time, right? Yes, we have half of the world's population going to the polls, but we also have in May what it seems to be most likely being brought into fruition, which is the WHO Pandemic Preparedness Treaty, and it seems to be not even just signed in, but signed in with more extreme changes to the bill that allows for the passing of sovereign powers, national sovereign powers, to a global elite that are unelected and untaxed. And that, to me, sounds straight out of Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Revelation chapter 13. And let's look at this straight away. What I see and what I believe is going to be built up. This may be a year in which we see so many of the world's nations go to the polls, but I see the development of a 10 king system. Now, I know that a lot of people talk about the BRICS system and the coincidental or, I guess, prophetic in some circles alignment of 10 nations at the moment. Um, I don't particularly go down the route that that the BRICS nations are those represented as the 10 kingdoms of Daniel, or even those represented as the 10 horns that we see in the book of Revelation. I want to look at this here straight away, and it says in Daniel 2, verses 41 to 44. So, talking about the building of the system, Nebuchadnezzar's statue gives you the, I guess, consecutive world empires that would exist. And the last empire is seen as an empire mixed between iron and clay. So it has the image of being strong, but it is actually at its root weak. And the clay is also a picture of being embroiled in sin. And it says in Daniel 2:41 to 44, and where thou sawest the feet and toes, part of the potter's clay and part of iron, the fourth kingdom shall be divided. And in these days, and then it goes on, that what will happen out of this 10 king system, represented by the 10 toes and represented by the 10 horns in Daniel 7, one will come through. This one will emerge. Now, in the, I guess, as it says in Ecclesiastes 3, there is nothing new under the sun. So we know that this has happened to some extent before. And the world at the time of Jesus would have known this. This is where we get a lot of our, I guess, historical references to how the Antichrist will be. So we know that in 168 BC, Antioch Epiphanes was beckoned onto Jerusalem by Hellenistic Jews who were fed up with the Hebrew remnant Jews who were, holding to scripture, and they weren't embracing the Hellenistic lifestyle, and in fact they were shunning those off the Hellenistic lifestyle. So they beckoned this guy Antioch Epiphanes, or they actually called him Antiochus the madman, but Epiphanes was the name he gave himself, which means God has appeared. And we know that he committed an abomination of desolation by presenting himself in the Holy of Holies. We also know that according to Daniel 7, that he was the little horn who emerges from the four horns. But this is a prophetic picture of what happens at the end of times. And we know this because Jesus goes on to quote in Matthew 24 in the Olivet Discourse that there will be an abomination of desolations. Not that one has happened, but there will be one to come in the future. And I guess what I'm trying to get at today is look at the political system around you, look at the signing over of sovereign powers, and look at the fact that people are holding on to their positions regardless of what has happened or what controversy has come about. If we look, for instance, that the head of the EU, Ursula von der Leyen, oh, sorry, wrong picture, that's the wrong Ursula, or is it? Sorry, I done that on purpose. Ursula von der Leyen, this is the current leader of the EU, and I have just seen and read that she is hoping to, or she's going up for another term, hoping that she will be extended for another term. Now, there's controversy surrounding Ursula as it is, specifically when we go back to the pandemic and we go back to her behavior during the pandemic and her own private messages soliciting I guess business, PPE, vaccines, and all of this here for what can only be described as personal gain. Now that isn't something new just to or something unique just to Ursula. We know that in the UK, Matt Hancock did the same, and we know that he signed over PPE contracts to friends, of which he was getting a return. We know that our own Prime Minister Rishi Sunak done the same with his investments in Moderna. So all of this aside, why isn't there going to be, like, why do I not believe that this year is going to mark a complete shift and these people are removed? Well, look at how, for instance, the European Union actually elects their leader for the next term. It's not done by the general populace, but it's done by the members of the European Parliament, and they all vote within them. So if you have a connection of trade, or if you have allowed somebody's bill to be heard or whatever, you now are in a coercive state in which you can sort of rally people around you to get your elected, you get to get yourself into that position. And I find this fascinating because I think to myself, are we going into this beast system? Is this beast system rising? Because everything points to that. CBDCs, signing over of sovereign powers, wars and rumors of wars, the complete chaos mentality. When I was speaking to Brandon Holthouse the other day, and you've probably seen that already, I brought up the concept of Machiavellianism. And it was William Federer, the publisher of, I think it's A Minute in History. He's a historian who I first heard say that Machiavellianism is like going around the back of a house, setting it on fire, and coming around the front of the house and selling a fire extinguisher. Now, to anybody who has an eye to see and an ear to hear, that sounds like Build Back Better to me. The same rhetoric that came out of the WEF, the same rhetoric that was used in America under the Biden regime, the same rhetoric that Boris Johnson used, the World Economic Forum stooges used, build back better. Well, how do they build back better? They first destroy things. And what I'm saying is I don't believe these people will be voted out of their position. I do believe it's important to go to the polls, but I don't believe people like Ursula von der Leyen, who we won't have a say in whether she stays or goes, I believe that they will stay in their position because they're not done with the wrecking procedure, right? For them to build back better, they have to destroy things. They have to break down the building blocks of our current system that we live in to build a new system, aka the beast system. So hopefully this is making sense, guys. If it is, hit 1. like, look at all of this, right? So we also have Mark Rutte. Now, Mark Rutte is former Prime Minister of the Netherlands, and you will be aware of what he came to the headlines with, specifically his war on farming. And with his war on farming and his nitrogen goals, the reduction of nitrogen in the atmosphere, one of the things that we saw that is that we saw Henry Kissinger's famous line coming into play. Now, Henry Kissinger said, control oil and you control the nations, control the food and you control the people. Well, if you're having an attack on the farming industry, if you're having an attack on the very people that allow the nations to be fed, then you're playing straight off the back of the World Economic Forum's playbook. You're building straight off the back of Henry Kissinger's I guess, mantra. By the way, we know that Henry Kissinger was a mentor to the head of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab. And I guess what I'm trying to say with all of this, I don't personally believe there will be a massive change in who is in ruling positions. I do believe that there may be a shifting, one person here, one person there, but they're all singing off the same demonic hymn sheet. Mark Rutte is now, according to one paper, and I don't know if I've actually got this here, he is the number one guy that is supposed to be our candidate for the head of NATO now. So they've taken his track record with the Netherlands. They've taken his track record with the farmer protests, with the massive rebellion in the sense of the people turning against him, and him failing in his role as Prime Minister of the Netherlands. And it says, guess what we'll do? We'll give him the ability to lead the biggest military alliance in the world, right? Because he done such a good job with those farmers, and he done such a good job following the World Economic Forum's mandate and mantra. Well, let's put him in another position of authority. And this is actually backed by the United Kingdom. The UK government has backed him as the best candidate for this job. And what I'm saying to you, I guess in a couple of different ways, there's a couple of different points I want to make. One, your hope should not be in a politician. Does that mean that the church does not get involved in politics? No, we are to be involved in politics. We are to still operate it as our role as restrainer of lawlessness, as salt and light. And that means that you're to get involved at your school board. That means that you're to get involved with local issues, with humanitarian issues, with standing against abortion and all of these different things. You are to get involved. You're not to be a pew sitter. But your hope is not in a politician. Because the minute you put your hope in a politician, I guarantee the minute even the church begins to shift this way, that is when you will see the little horn emerge from that system. That's when you will see the Mr. Fix-It step on the scene and say, guess what? I'm the politician you've been looking for. In fact, Jesus says this in John 5. He says that he came in his Father's name and you rejected him, but one will come in his own name and you will flock to him. And I guess what I'm trying to say here today is that don't put your faith in the political system. Be politically engaged. Be aware of what's going on. Be going to the polls. But understand that there is a demonic move and a demonic strategy to take away your power to change who's in power, right? Democracy, the whole I guess selling point of democracy is that if we have a tyrant as a ruler, we can remove them. Well, anybody here in the UK knows that that's kind of difficult, right? What we've seen, even with the continuation of the Tory party, is that, will they just elect themselves a new Prime Minister when one Prime Minister has failed utterly and been caught out by the public? They just elect themselves another one off the same cloth, cut from the same cloth. And yes, there is elections coming, but then you look at the alternative, and the alternative on the other side is probably more extreme than what we've got at the moment. You see, what we're seeing and what I personally see prophetically coming, we have seen for so long the mix of private and public sector, right? So we have seen those in the private sector mixed with the public sector through financing and through gain. And now we're in a stage where we have seven, the magnificent seven, the seven big corporations of the world, from Amazon, Apple, Meta, all of those ones, right? Google. And now we see the partnerships happening all the way around the world, and they're all singing off a demonic hymn sheet that is produced by what I would call a demonic think tank in the World Economic Forum. And they're all going in one direction. And if they have to lose somebody along the way, guess what? They're putting in the carbon copy. Now, that's not for you to be dismayed or despondent about. And I know that a lot of people will put a lot of faith in certain individuals stepping into the political arena. But here's the thing, regardless of whoever steps in, that's not where our faith sits. Our faith sits in Jesus. Do we stand and do we vote and do we restrain and do we continue to operate as salt and light? 100%. But we do not ever put our faith in an individual. Our faith sits in Jesus Christ. I believe that we are sort of hurtling along this road to the development of this 10 king system. And we know that the Club of Rome in 1963 actually showed a map of the splitting up of the world into 10 rulable nations or 10 rulable territories. I believe those days will come. And they'll maybe they come under the form of alliance, maybe they come in the form of, right, this is a jurisdictional takeover, but they are coming. And they are coming specifically through the continued cohesion between corporation and politics. We saw it through 2020. We saw corporation and politics go hand in hand. That you had suppliers of medication or suppliers of protection equipment and so on be the ones that seem to usher in or guide public policy. And where did the public feature in this? We were reduced to consumerism. This is the satanic strategy of Revelation 13. To reduce the human being to being consumers. So that we take our play or take our motivation from whether we can trade or not trade. And we take a mark whether we can trade or not trade. Do you understand? That's what we're being reduced to. And one of the biggest prophetic signs you can see of this is when the church is reduced to consumerism. When the church stop operating as salt and light, stop operating as the restrainer of lawlessness, and instead step into that consumer role. So this is just a little, I guess, update today. And I just wanted to share this with you. I was going to, initially today was going to be the Brandon Holthouse interview, but I put it out early. So, and I hope everybody's seen that. I really enjoyed myself in that interview, like I've enjoyed myself in everyone I've had on. And we've got Josh Peck coming up next. So guys, we have got fantastic interviews on the pipeline. We've got a load of things going on. Be blessed and highly favored, and don't lose hope. Remember that in these days weariness can set in, but if you keep your eyes trained on the coming of our Savior Jesus Christ, you're filled with confidence, filled with boldness to continually restrain. Amen. Guys, God bless.